Morning, good afternoon, good evening. We live in a dictatorship, and dictators live in their own world, completely divorced from reality. They only see and hear what they want to see and hear. And this is typical of Emerson Mnangagwa. There are reports that he was telling his fellow Zanu PF Politburo members the other day as the nation breaks up for the Easter holidays. And I quote, Zimbabwe is largely a Christian and God-fearing nation, with peace and unity being vital pillars of our nation building. Let us take the opportunity of the various activities lined ahead of both government and the party to preach and live in unity, peace, love, and harmony. We must join communities as a congregate across our wards, districts, and provinces towards cementing the prevailing peace, unity, and social cohesion, which binds us as one people. In conclusion, our aim as the party remains ensuring that we, the descendants of Munhumutapa, forever remain masters of our destiny. This is in itself one of the cornerstones of the people's revolution. We must, as the party, at every level, continue to work towards and facilitate the realization of this overarching revolutionary mission. The tyrant's sheer arrogance, hypocrisy, and blase indifference to the tragic suffering and death of millions of Zimbabweans is insufferable. He is talking here of the descendants of Munhumutapa, forever remaining masters of our destiny. This is the man that has just rigged the 2023 elections. When you are rigging elections, you are denying the ordinary people a meaningful say in the governance of the country, in determining the nation's destiny. So in this case here, all he's saying then is the Zanu PF, he and his fellow Zanu PF thugs who rigged the elections, and who have been rigging elections since independence, are the only ones who have got the right to determine the destiny of Zimbabwe. This is at the heart of our problem in Zimbabwe. We have a regime that believes that they have the divine right to do as they please and are totally indifferent to the realities that the rest of the people out there are facing. Zimbabwe is a failed state. And the main reason why that is so is because the country has failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections. We can pretend all we want, or rather, the regime can pretend all it wants that the country is doing well. The truth is the country is not doing well at all. Ever since the country's independence, we've seen the economy decline. And now it is no exaggeration that the economy is in ruins. Most of the country's industries have closed, throwing millions of people out of work. Zimbabwe's economy, formal sector, is employing maybe 10% of the people. The other 90% of the potential workers out there, they're in the informal sector. They are merely subsisting, living from hand to mouth. The country's infrastructure are in an advanced stage of decay and rot. Basic services like healthcare and education have all but collapsed. Up to 49% of our people are living in abject poverty. And yet here is somebody saying we must cement. What is there to cement? All he's saying is, of course, if those people who are dying should ever want to say, no, this is not right, let's change the system, you'll use that as an excuse to ruthlessly silence them in the name of unity and peace. This is a classical case of a dictator. He has his foot on your neck and asking you to remain peaceful. He doesn't want you to make any noise. You cannot cry out that you're not breathing because that disturbs the peace. It really is difficult to see how Zimbabwe is going to get out of this. The truth of the matter is, we did have the opportunity to get out of this mess. And unfortunately, our friends in the MDC CCC sold out. And so the opportunity was lost. The 2008 to 2013 GNU was the golden opportunity for Zimbabwe to implement the democratic reforms and end the Zanu PF dictatorship. Alas, that opportunity was wasted. And now we're paying dearly for it. Last year's elections should not have taken place. Everyone could see that Zanu PF was going to rig those elections. And we know that CCC were participating, knowing fully well that Zanu PF was rigging the elections, knowing fully well that by participating, they will only be giving Zanu PF legitimacy. This they've known all along since the GNU debacle. But they've been participating in these elections out of greed. The main problem here is that the people themselves have been very slow in picking up the reality on the ground. There's absolutely no excuse for it. We have got enough well-educated Zimbabweans out there, some of them with really good professions. And yet, many of them, even some of them to this day, have failed to accept the reality that MDC, Triple C have sold out on reforms, and they've been participating in these flawed elections to give Zanu PF legitimacy out of greed. Nations get the government they deserve. And we in Zimbabwe, we cannot deny that we deserve this Zanu PF dictatorship, complete with this MDC Triple C sidekick. There is no excuse whatsoever why many Zimbabweans out there failed to realize that MDC Triple C have sold out. There's no excuse for that. None. The opposition, the primary purpose, the people of Zimbabwe have risked livelihoods, limbs, and some have even lost their lives to elect the MDC Triple C leaders into power was so that they would implement the democratic reforms which would stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. Why so many Zimbabweans have failed to realize that after 23 years, MDC Triple C guys have sold out. Beggars belief. There's absolutely no excuse for it. But the truth is they have. And hence we are where we are today. What we have got to realize, what Mnangagwa is saying, is that here is a regime that is determined to hang on to power at all costs. Of course, he knows that he rigged last year's election, but he doesn't care. Even the AU election observers, SADC, the regional body election observers, they also said those elections were flawed. But he doesn't care about that, as long as he stays in power. The fight to remove the Zanu PF dictatorship is not it's not mission impossible, but it is one that will require focus and determination. We do not have to have another armed struggle to remove Zanu PF. We only have to use our heads for a change. If, for instance, the people of Zimbabwe had listened to the warning given to them last year not to participate in the flawed elections, because participating in flawed elections will only give Zanu PF legitimacy, Zanu PF would have been denied political legitimacy by both SADC and the AU. But when the people themselves participated in their millions, because they had believed Chamisa Sly that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes, why anyone would believe such an idiotic claim, beggars belief, but people did. And once you've given the regime legitimacy, you're stuck. That is the price we paid. I believe SADC would have denied Mnangagwa and company political legitimacy last year if the people had not participated in those elections, and more significantly, if the MDC, Triple C leaders had not taken up their gravitating seats, even after SADC and the AU had said those elections were flawed, they still went ahead and took up their seats. I think it only gave SADC's leaders the excuse to say, well, if Zimbabweans are happy with the flawed electoral process, who are we to deny the government political legitimacy? And that argument was further reinforced when Chamisa's Triple C started imploding. It's one thing for SADC to deny Zanu PF political legitimacy, but if they have no one to work with, it will be suicidal. In the circumstances, if I was one of the SADC leaders and I was consulted on that issue, is, well, we can deny Zanu PF political legitimacy, but who? Even if we formed a government of national unity, who will be in that government of national unity? Right now, we have seen the MDC has broken up into 3 different factions. So which of the 3 factions would have been in the GNU? And what change could we possibly expect, even if all 3 with them were in the GNU? What democratic reforms would we have expected such a divided opposition to implement? We'll just be back to where we were in 2008 to 2013. Mnangagwa's arrogance and indifference is typical of a dictator. He is cementing the Zanu PF's iron grip on power. Without any doubt at all, I don't see any pressure being applied to this regime to implement reforms. And so come the 2028 election, I think we can safely say the Zanu PF will rig those elections as well. So is there any way out of this? I believe there is a way out of this. I believe if people make a conscientious decision right now to say this Zanu PF government is illegitimate, because it is illegitimate. SADC itself has said so. The AU itself has said so. But it needs to come from the people themselves. We have got to say so ourselves and pile on the pressure that this regime is illegitimate. That pressure will force SADC, the AU, to do something about it. If they don't remove the regime in the next 4 years, at least we've got a fighting chance of 2028 of saying people are not going to participate in flawed elections without meaningful reforms being implemented. That will be the pressure point. If we don't do anything, if we accept the status quo, trust me, Mnangagwa will cement the dictatorship. He will want to silence all dissent by pretending that anyone who dissent or criticize the regime is disturbing the peace. He has done that before, and he'll do it again. Whether we like it or not, independence in Zimbabwe did not bring the freedom, the liberty, and the justice that we all were aspiring for. If we want that, we have to fight for it. And when I say fight, I don't mean taking up a gun. I think this time we've got to fight using our heads for a change. The fight using the gun did not accomplish much, as we should all know. It only managed to get Zanu PF into power. And as soon as they were in power, they turned the gun on the ordinary civilian. Ordinary person had to do what the regime wanted. It is folly, of course, to argue looking up the business end of an AK-47 rifle. But over the last 44 years, there were many opportunities for us to stand up and say, no, this is not right. We need to change here. And it is not too late to say so now. We can say so now. And we must say so now. I honestly believe that if we do not stand up and say this regime is illegitimate now, we will not get any meaningful change come the 2028 elections, particularly given the sorry state of the opposition. Without any doubt at all, whatever opposition emerge, I don't see them do anything other than participate in the 2028 elections. And I don't see why many of their supporters would not once again be conned into participating too, just as they were conned last year. Such is the level of ignorance of our Zimbabwe electorate. Even after 43 years of rigged elections, we still are failing to understand what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections. In this day and age, that is, of course, unbelievable. But there it is. I've been accused of, you bring up the problem, but you don't suggest a solution. The solution, I emphasize, in our present situation, is for people to wake up to the reality that Zanu PF is illegitimate. And the fact that AU and SADC, election observers, last year condemned those elections as illegitimate, gives us a starting point. We do not have to keep on participating and propping up this regime as we did by participating in the last year's elections. There is no one who is going to force the ordinary Zimbabwean out there to participate in the coming independence, for instance. There is no one who is going to force those people in the areas where there are going to be by-elections on the 27th of April to go and vote. Why are you going to vote in a process that you know is so flawed, it cannot produce any other result other than a Zanu PF victory? A determined electorate who can see that this is sheer insanity, keeping on participating in flawed elections, is what the country needs to get out of this mess. And that civil disobedience born out of the understanding that the present situation is untenable, is totally unacceptable, is what Zimbabwe needs to get out of this mess. It is within our powers to change this system. We only have to think. No one is going to do it for us. People get the government they deserve, whether we like it or not. In Zimbabwe, we have the Zanu PF regime, and we deserve it. Complete with its MDC CCC sidekick that has done a great job of keeping Zanu PF in power and making sure they get legitimacy. We need to wake up to that reality. We need to denounce it and start denouncing it now. It is going to be tough. Until we get the reforms implemented, until we get free, fair, and credible elections, Zimbabwe is not getting out of the mess it is in. That is the truth. Thank you very much for listening, and good night.